Hey, so I guess we're going, huh?
Yeah. Hey, Andy.
Hey, what's up, Ricky? Welcome back to the AZA podcast, everybody. All of our listeners out there, our growing listenership.
Growing every week.
So we got a fun one today, a topic that everybody enjoys. What are we talking about today, Ricky?
So today we're going to talk about coffee,
Yeah,
which
and
I think almost everybody has at least had a cup in their life, whether they liked it or not.
mhm. Yeah, and kind of just get into the question of, is coffee good for you or bad for you? Kind of what does the science say about that, or any research that's out there?
hmm
Do we think that it's part of a healthy lifestyle or not? And I guess I'm just going to kick it off. While I was looking into this topic, I came across a few interesting facts that I thought maybe I'd just throw out right before we get into the health and negative health, aspects.
hmm
It's the most popular drug on earth by far. I think we kind of all know that. It's massively consumed. Over 50% of US adults drink coffee every single day. So that's about 150 million people in the US.
hmm
And about 1 billion people worldwide consume coffee every day. And I found this, I just thought this was kind of interesting. Finland is the #1 coffee consuming nation in the world.
Really?
Yeah, Finnish people consume 26 pounds of coffee per person each year.
Wow.
And that just stuck out to me, only because and I won't go into why I know this, but like my personal history, but I learned a bit of Finnish back in the day. And the first word that I learned in the Finnish language was aamukavi, which is their word for morning coffee. I'm not sure in the Finnish language. I don't know if it's like Eskimo where they have like 20 words for snow. Maybe Finns have like several words for coffee. But they have this word aamukavi, which just refers to their morning coffee, which
Hmm.
they pretty much always have. So I've always loved that. I still use that term to this day. I still remember it. That's kind of a fun one.
hmm
And check this out. Coffee is the second most traded commodity in the world.
Hmm.
Can you guess what the first one is?
Tobacco?
No, that's actually a good guess.
Uh,
Oil.
oil.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, once you say it, it's obvious, but so that kind of surprised me. Yeah, right behind oil, coffee, the second most traded commodity in the world.
Hmm.
Kind of
I'm
cool
kind
there.
of I'm kind of interested in your what do they classify as a drug? It's kind of
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Because I feel like
it's a
sugar
blurry
is
line.
probably more abused than, or alcohol might even be more abused than caffeine or consumed than caffeine. Well, I don't know. Maybe
I bet there's more daily coffee drinkers than there are daily alcohol drinkers, although it
I
might
guess
be.
that's true. What about sugar consumption though?
Yeah, well, if you want to call sugar a drug, then that's probably #1. Yeah, the word drug is a pretty blurry line. So
hmm
take from that statement what you want to, but coffee is definitely pretty popular. That's the point. So maybe let's see. I was thinking in this podcast we could talk a little bit about the some of the health benefits that we've come across and
hmm
some of the negative consequences of drinking coffee. Um, the health benefits I think are really interesting, and that's kind of what I was paying more attention to. And those are the things that I think most people won't know too much about.
hmm
The negative consequences are things that I think even the someone who's not interested in health kind of knows about. It's kind of a common knowledge. So maybe we could start there before we get into the health benefits.
hmm
So if we were to talk about maybe some of the negatives of coffee drinking, anything that you'd want to kick us off with there? Any obvious ones that come to mind?
I mean, the first one I can think of is a spike in blood pressure.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Everyone knows that if you drink too much coffee, then it kind of can make you jittery and elevate your heart rate. So your heart starts pounding,
hmm
and that can cause an acute elevation of blood pressure. I think it's probably important to here's something interesting. One of the health benefits of coffee is that it does improve endothelial function, and I think in the long term, coffee may actually reduce blood pressure, so it might
hmm
reduce your risk of hypertension. But what you're talking about is like acute blood pressure, like right after you drink a cup of coffee for the immediate half an hour or hour or two after drinking it, your blood pressure will rise.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you bring that up because a lot of research that I did on this, it was like all those negative things that you do hear about coffee, generally it's all short-term effects. They're not long-term effects or
Right.
things that have like a lasting effect. It's not like if you drink coffee, your blood sugar, or not your blood sugar, but your blood pressure spikes, you know,
Right.
in forever. Yeah, you're not just all of a sudden at like 100 beats per minute for the rest of your
Right.
life.
It's just for like maybe 20 minutes or half an hour or an hour or two, something like that. It's acute.
Yeah. I didn't know that it actually could help you regulate your blood pressure, you know, over time. Like your blood pressure could regulate itself, like, or improve. That I didn't know.
Yep,
But
yep, maybe slightly, yeah, because
Mhm.
it does actually have some benefits to your cardiovascular system in the long run.
Hmm.
But you're right. Immediately after drinking coffee, your blood pressure goes up, and
Hmm.
for people who might have a condition where an acute rise in blood pressure could cause them problems, that's someone who might want
Hmm.
to avoid coffee.
Yep.
And yeah, same. Let's see. We can talk about like it can cause jitteriness or anxiety in some people, and
Yeah.
again, that's like an acute effect, you know, and usually that's over consuming. I know for me, for example, if I have like one cup of coffee, maybe I feel good and um, motivated and energetic or whatever, but if I had like two cups of coffee or three, then I might feel jittery and anxious. And so there's, you know, I think we've all gone overboard with caffeine at least once or twice in our lives, and we know that there's a limit where it you get diminishing returns and you start to have some negative effects there.
Hmm. Now, did you do any research on the dehydration effects of coffee?
Yeah, I've talked about this a lot in the past with people. Had little debates with people about it
Hmm.
because caffeine is a diuretic.
Technically.
There's no question about that. Caffeine will make you pee free water, and it'll um, you know, make you lose water.
Hmm.
But coffee is not a diuretic,
Hmm.
because coffee isn't just pure caffeine. Coffee is also like 99.99% water. So
Hmm.
you're getting a little bit of caffeine, which is a diuretic, but you're consuming it along with a whole cup of water, essentially. And so
Hmm.
they kind of balance each other out. And the overall effect is that there's no diuretic effect. There's no dehydrating effect of
Yeah.
coffee.
And do you know where that actual like misconception comes from?
No, where?
It was a study in 1928.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so in 1928 there is I forget the country that did the study, but they determined that if you consume coffee, you were likely to excrete 50% more urine than if you didn't consume coffee.
Okay.
And it was just within a 2-hour period after consuming it.
Yep.
So
Again, acute effects. Yep.
right. So then they started doing more analysis and more recent research with like higher technology and, you know, more consistent data versus just how much do you pee. And
Mhm.
they determined that your overall, like, you know, water levels in your body don't actually change at all from consuming coffee versus not consuming coffee, I guess.
Sure, because you're essentially putting in this dehydrating diuretic, the
Hmm.
caffeine, but you're also putting in water at the same time, which is hydrating, and so
Hmm.
they just kind of balance each other out.
Yeah, which I
Yeah.
thought that was pretty interesting just because most people, if you ask anybody, they're like, oh, yeah, you'll dehydrate yourself if you drink, you know, or is a diuretic, you can't take it.
That's
But,
probably the number one myth that I could think of. I was trying to think of maybe some myths or misconceptions too with coffee. That's the
hmm.
number one that I could come up with, is that coffee will dehydrate you, when in
Hmm.
fact it's actually not the case.
Yeah.
However, I imagine that if you were to drink, let's say, shots of espresso, where you're
Hmm.
getting the same amount of caffeine, but you're getting a lower volume and you're not getting the water content because it's just like
Hmm.
a little shot, that would be dehydrating. Yep.
Yeah. So espresso, you know, I actually looked up like all the different caffeine levels and I found a really awesome site that shows all that for depending on what you're consuming.
Mhm.
While a shot of espresso has less caffeine than a cup of coffee,
Okay.
it's like 64 versus a cup of coffee is about 100
Yep.
roughly. You're right that it's you know, it has less water, so it's a higher concentration of caffeine, in which if you did a double shot of espresso, you could
Mhm.
technically dehydrate yourself to some extent if you drank it in excess.
Right. But again, that's going to be pretty mild.
Right. I mean, I forget, there was a study done of like how much caffeine you'd actually have to consume, or how much coffee. I shouldn't say caffeine, even though I kind of use those interchangeably because that's the active ingredient.
Sure. Yeah.
But no, to drink enough coffee to cause you to actually be dehydrated, you'd have to consume almost like 7 gallons.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
And your stomach can't even hold that as a capacity, or the average person can't. There are some people that can, but let's just say it'd be almost physically impossible for the average person to dehydrate themselves on coffee.
Okay. So dehydration, not a concern. Got that. Another one, just going on the negatives here. I guess this is, well, okay, here's another one that everyone knows about, is that it affects sleep, right? Maybe I guess I could talk about this a little bit. We rely on 2 molecules that I'm thinking of to help us get to sleep. One being melatonin, the sleep hormone, and another one being adenosine, which is a molecule that when we're awake all day long, it kind of builds up in our brain throughout the course of the day. And adenosine is a molecule that makes you feel tired. And throughout the day, it builds up to higher and higher levels. And at nighttime, there's so much of it that it overwhelms you and you feel so tired that you go to sleep. It exerts what's called sleep pressure on you. And the way that caffeine works is that it binds to the same receptor in the brain that adenosine does. So it blocks adenosine from being able to make you tired. So even though adenosine is always building up, if you're drinking coffee, you don't notice that high level of adenosine, and it can't make you tired the way that it normally would. So drinking coffee blocks adenosine from working, and drinking coffee, at least in the evening time, impairs melatonin secretion. So those 2 molecules, melatonin, the hormone, and adenosine, that we rely on to make us drowsy and help us go to sleep at night, caffeine impairs the functioning of both of those. And it also disrupts sleep quality a little bit and can delay your circadian rhythm. So, everyone knows that caffeine at nighttime is something that can potentially keep you awake at night and disrupt your sleep. Again, another common sense negative, but something that goes in the negative category. Sure, I think.
And I mean, and it definitely depends on the individual, because there's actually been some studies done on people that can metabolize caffeine 4 times as efficiently.
Yeah, I saw that. I am a slow metabolizer of caffeine.
Really? Because I'm a fast one.
So yeah, for the listeners, people who metabolize, and it's totally genetic, but people who metabolize caffeine quickly are the sort of people who can drink coffee at like 8 or 9 p.m. and then fall asleep an hour later. And the people who metabolize caffeine slowly, like I do, are people who, like, if I have coffee after noon, I'm going to have trouble sleeping that night.
And and that's interesting. So you must be like, because there's a range. I remember when we did our sleep episode, we did that blanket statement where it was like 12 hours in order to clear the caffeine in your body.
And that's definitely a variable.
Yeah. And I looked it up because I was like, oh, that seems like a very long time. And I mean, the half-life of caffeine is 6 hours for an average person. But the range is somewhere between 1.5 hours and 9.5 hours. Yeah,
that's an interesting thing, that you can't always go by half-life, because it depends on how your body metabolizes something. Is what really determines how long it's going to affect you and how quickly you're going to clear it from your body and no longer experience the effects of it.
Right. So that's why
you can drink coffee at night and fall asleep, huh?
I could drink coffee. Yeah, pretty much. Like let's say my bedtime's at 8 o'clock, I could probably drink it at like 6 o'clock with like almost zero effect.
Wow. Yeah. I wouldn't be able to fall asleep. No way.
Obviously I don't do that because there are a lot of other studies that say, like you were saying, it messes with your circadian rhythm. It can also
quality.
Yeah. And your sleep quality, because I think they say that if you consume caffeine within 6 hours of sleeping, it'll reduce the average sleep time by 1 hour.
Okay.
So so if let's say you were on average, the average person probably only gets like 6 hours of sleep. And then if you consume caffeine within that 6 hour period before you fall asleep, you're only getting 5 hours of sleep.
Right. Yeah. That's
So
significant.
yeah, that's pretty significant. So I don't know. It's interesting to see these differences, and obviously as a good rule of thumb, just assume you're in that 6 hour category average for half-life.
Mhm.
And I think so you have to give yourself almost 12 hours. So if you go to bed at, let's say, 10 p.m., you probably shouldn't have another cup of coffee after like 10 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good advice, I think. On the plus side, most people figure out their individual variants to this on their own, because
Hmm.
most people drink coffee every day. We've already said half of the Americans do. And after a few years of drinking coffee, most people know, like, I can't have it in the afternoon, or I can have it up until this time or whatever. So it's
Hmm.
something that people can figure out on their own, and most people do anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Hmm.
Another one, coffee or caffeine spikes cortisol.
Mm.
Um, and we know cortisol is a stress hormone. A lot of people do suffer from chronically high cortisol levels, mainly because people are overstressed, and cortisol is released when you're stressed out. That can be mentally, from like a job you don't like, or just a lot of responsibilities and mental exhaustion,
Hmm.
or physically, maybe if you're overtrained at the gym or something like that. But there's all these stresses that we can place on our body. And if you're an overstressed individual, then you already have chronically high cortisol levels. That's someone who might want to reduce their coffee consumption. You don't want to be pushing your cortisol levels even higher if they're already too high.
Hmm.
But in people who manage their stress well, that shouldn't be a concern.
Yeah.
Is at least my take on that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I couldn't find anything on that, so I have nothing to contribute to you on that one, but I still think that's an interesting fact. And I did know generally that coffee can induce stress. So I guess in some ways, raising cortisol levels also increases the stress within yourself.
Yeah, yeah. So it is a slight stress on the system, and basically the takeaway is, if you are an overstressed individual already, coffee
Hmm.
might be adding fuel to the fire, basically.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I want to go back a little bit to when you were talking about the adenosine receptors
oh yeah,
and how caffeine does, obviously interfere with adenosine receptors by, linking to them. But the I think that it's interesting to note that it's not like you can indefinitely stay awake.
no, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not like you can just be like, okay, if I just drink coffee every 5 hours, then there's no way that my adenosine's ever gonna, receive those receptors, because, I'll constantly be blocking them. At some point, your body is going to build up such a high level of adenosine
Mhm.
that no matter what concentration you try to consume of caffeine, it's going to outweigh it, and it's going to bond to those receptors over the caffeine, and you will eventually just literally pass out.
Yeah, your natural biology is going to win in the end.
Yeah, so people out there, don't think you can just kind of trick your body and do this. You will eventually crash.
Sleep is too wonderful anyway, so don't.
Yeah,
Why would you want to do that?
there's so many benefits to sleep and very little benefits to coffee. So don't ever try to replace your sleep with coffee.
Before we go further with this, are you a regular coffee drinker, Ricky? Or
I do. I have my 8 ounces in the morning.
yep.
So just about a cup of coffee in the morning, and right before the gym. And we can get into the effects of why I do
Yeah.
that, or like
Yeah,
the
we'll get
fitness
into the
effects.
benefits in a second. Yeah, but yeah,
But
that's the same for me. I thought we should establish that off the bat. Is so you do like a daily cup of coffee, and I
mhm,
I'll usually start my day with either a cup of coffee or maybe tea if I don't want coffee that morning. But
mhm.
yeah, I'm not against coffee. I use it myself.
Yeah,
Well, hopefully I use it well.
but I think a lot of people use like pre-workout and stuff like that,
Yep.
and that has a ton of caffeine in it.
Yeah.
It can even have more than a cup of coffee.
Oh, usually far more. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Most of those
mean,
pre-workout supplements these days have something like 150 milligrams per serving, and usually they say
mhm.
you could take 1 to 3 servings, which is like,
Yeah.
I mean, kids drinking those pre-workout supplements are taking in often the equivalent of 3 or 4 cups of coffee in in one serving of their pre-workout.
Yeah. And it's, yeah, we can talk about the health effects of that, but honestly, I think pre-workout is very overrated. And if you are going to consume it, you have to do it on like a cycling basis. You shouldn't just take it every single day, because you're going to build an immunity to that caffeine level at some point. The same way that even us drinking just that cup of coffee in the morning, we still get used to that, and really you won't see the effects of it over a long period. But if you do cycle it, then you can see some minor effects.
Yeah, and that's a good tip, the cycling, because one of the other negatives that I might have listed would be like the tolerance that you build up to it, and also the addictive quality of caffeine.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knows that caffeine is somewhat addictive. There's a lot of people who say that they can't function without their morning cup of coffee, and they drink coffee every single day to get them going.
Mm-hmm.
And if they do decide that they're going to stop drinking coffee, like they want to, cleanse their body of it or whatever for a short period of time, often those first few days that they're not consuming caffeine, they have headaches, irritable mood, fatigue, and those are all withdrawal symptoms that show that you've got kind of a chemical dependency there has happened. And with, with the tolerance thing too, like people start off, I know for me, I remember starting off drinking like 1 cup of coffee every day, and then it became 2, and then it became 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've all gone through that.
Yeah, I think it's called college.
Yep.
But
yeah, after a while, it gets to the point where like 3 cups of coffee doesn't even affect you as much as 1 cup did when you started. And that's probably a sign that you've gone a little too far with it, and you might need to back off and cleanse your system of it a little bit, regain that sensitivity.
Yeah, because some signs that you're kind of doing too high a dosage, or you're starting to see that and you're kind of pushing those limits, is like, you can get diarrhea, you can have increased sweating, nausea,
Yep.
Obviously the increased heart rate or increased breathing rate, and even in some cases like muscle tremors. So those are just some signs to kind of look out for if you are consuming an excess of probably 3 to 4 cups of coffee a day.
Right on.
But
okay.
Yeah.
So now, like I said, I think even people who aren't interested in health or physiology, don't really research this very much. They kind of already knew all that stuff that we just talked about. It's kind of common sense. People who drink coffee, it's just so ubiquitous in our world that we all know that it's got these potential downsides. But what did you find when it comes to upsides of coffee, some of the health benefits or potential health benefits? Or did you want me to start on that?
I'll let you start on that, because the things that I found are kind of more obscure. I can do the ones related to fitness.
Sure.
But there are just so many things from like I think I was mentioning earlier with you in our earlier discussion was like, Alzheimer's and, cancer. And I'm like, okay, so, and they were drinking excess coffee in order to achieve those things. And
yeah,
I honestly think that, maybe if you're in a case where you have a higher possibility of having those illnesses, maybe it would be beneficial for you. I wouldn't ever recommend taking more than 6 cups of coffee a day. Definitely talk to your doctor if you're going to consider that.
Right. Talk to your doctor if you're considering using coffee as medication.
Right.
For a serious illness.
So I'll let you come up with one of your first benefits.
Well, you know what? Here's what I'll do just to start this off, because I don't have a lot to say about some of these things. But I did find a really nice blog post by Mark Sisson, who is he wrote a book called The Primal Blueprint a while back, maybe about 20 years ago, which is a book that I recommend. It's a book about basically paleo eating. But he ran a blog for a long time too, where he talked about various health and wellness topics. And he did a post about coffee where he looked at a lot of the newer research that's out there and listed some of the benefits that the research shows. So let me just rattle off some of these. And here's the thing that I want to say first before I do is most of these benefits, most of this research, it's all epidemiological studies, which means that it's not like clinical trials. They didn't actually, study human beings in a lab, in an isolated lab where they were, there were controls and stuff. Most of these are like survey-based studies. So it's kind of weak evidence, but it's still interesting data regardless. So some of the things that they found were, among regular coffee drinkers, modest reduction in all cancer types. It seems to have a lot of brain health or potential brain health benefits, protecting against age-related cognitive decline. You mentioned reduced rates of Alzheimer's disease, slightly lowered rates of Parkinson's disease. It's got some metabolic and blood sugar control effects, where you have a lowered risk of type 2 diabetes, slightly lower blood sugar levels, improved insulin sensitivity, improved endothelial function. Your endothelium is the inner lining of your blood vessels, and that's something that we really want to make sure is as healthy as we can be, because we don't want hardening of the arteries, and we don't want plaque buildup and all those things that lead to cardiovascular disease down the line. So improved endothelial function is one potential benefit of coffee. Reduced risk of stroke, lowered risk of gallstones, lowered inflammation, and that actually came from a clinical trial. It boosts HDL cholesterol. That also comes from some clinical trials, and that's pretty well known. HDL is usually referred to as the good cholesterol. They say that, if you can have I think doctors want your HDL cholesterol to be roughly above 40 is usually the score on a blood panel in the US. But if you can get up higher than that, like around like the 70, 80 range, that's that kind of almost bulletproofs you against cardiovascular disease in the future. HDL cholesterol is really important. It's very protective against cardiovascular disease. So anything that boosts HDL, good cholesterol, is a good thing, and coffee seems to do that. Lowered oxidative stress, and oxidation is just a chemical reaction that happens in the body that can damage a lot of cells and tissue types.
Because it's a free radical, and that's why it has a lot of antioxidants.
That's right. And coffee has something like over 1,000 antioxidants that have been discovered. God only knows what all of those are, or who.
I don't keep track of all that.
Identify them, but in any case, there's a lot of antioxidants in coffee, so that reduces that free radical stress. And reduced risk of sun damage or photoaging. So like the wrinkles that you get from being in the sun, that sort of thing. And that's probably from the antioxidant effects too, maybe the polyphenols in coffee, that sort of thing. One interesting thing about all those that I just listed too is, even though the evidence is a little bit weak for those benefits, because they are mostly associational, or epidemiological studies, one cool thing is that, at least with these, there's no healthy user bias, because coffee is usually thought of as, I think most people, if you ask them, is coffee good for you or bad for you? Most people think it's bad for you. Most people put it in the category of vices, along with like alcohol or cigarette smoking, that sort of thing. So the people who, it's not like only healthy people drink coffee. So there's no healthy user bias when it comes to this research and these findings. So that's kind of nice.
Did any of those studies that you saw, did they like give any concentrations of caffeine levels or anything?
No, most of these were, these are the effects that are seen in regular drinkers of coffee. Okay. So basically, these are just people who say on a survey that they drink coffee on a daily
regularly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like you said, with the type 2 diabetes, I only found one study. Again, it was still just a questionnaire, but they broke the people into groups of, whether they drank 0 cups, 1 cup, 2 cup, 3 cup, 4 cup, 5 cup, or 6 cups a day. And they kind of laid out, I don't want to get into all the numbers, but they did show that there was a correlation with the more coffee you drank, the less likely you were to become a type 2 diabetic.
Okay.
So that basically was, if you drank 0, you were more likely, versus if you drank 6, you were less likely.
It does really seem to have an effect there.
Yeah.
But through improving insulin sensitivity, lowering blood sugar excursions, it does seem to have a promising effect on lowering type 2 diabetes rates.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to like the fat burning stuff and maybe helping clear out some of that visceral fat and fatty liver and so on that leads to type 2 diabetes down the road. So
Yeah.
yeah, who knows what the mechanisms are, but it is associated with a lot of health benefits. So that's kind of cool for all the coffee lovers out there,
Mm-hmm.
which probably makes up the majority of listeners. If we want to get into now some of the more the benefits that we like to experience, or the reasons that we drink coffee, because those things that I just listed, they're just neat things that I found that, you know, in a quick research, you know, Google research.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, none of those are like the reason that I tend to drink coffee. Probably you also.
Correct.
So do you want to get into maybe like performance benefits, either cognitive boosts or physical benefits or anything like that? Like, what's your take on what coffee can do for us?
So one of the main reasons that I consume it before my workout is because I know that caffeine tends to take 30 to 60 minutes to really hit you.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time I drive to a gym is about 20 to 30 minutes. So if I finish my coffee and then drive to the gym, I know that it's going to hit me right when I'm there.
Perfect.
But the one thing it really helps is your mental focus. So whenever you're lifting, it can help you give that extra concentration to your lifts and kind of help you focus on the movements that you're doing, and it also kind of helps me to block out other distractions in some ways. I've never seen like an increase in weight. Like I've never been like, oh, I drank coffee today, so I lifted, 8,000 pounds. But I do think that it has some sort of like an endurance effect, where since it's giving me some sort of energy, it actually allows me to push harder at certain weights.
I think so too. I had that in the physical benefits category of my notes. I basically said the same thing as you. Like, I saw one study that said that it improves workout performance by like roughly 5 to 10%. I don't remember what kind of athletes they were studying in that one. Might have been sprinters or something.
Yeah, it's probably endurance athletes, because they say it does a lot for endurance, but not like any type of like weightlifting type things.
Okay. Yeah, but for me, like, yeah, and just improving that energy and focus and kind of allowing you to get a little more mentally dialed in on your workout. And, I think it increases motivation a little bit, and kind of just, we all know coffee gets you kind of elevated and ready to go. I think though, it also decreases your RPE, your rate of perceived exertion. And that's what you were saying there is, it makes hard things feel a little less hard. So I also like coffee before my workouts, about half an hour before, exactly like what you just said, for exactly the same reasons. I feel like I get a better workout. I'm a little more dialed in, a little more focused, and everything seems a little bit easier when I've had a little bit of caffeine.
It is weird how it does feel a little easier. I think I'm gonna probably do some sort of cycles. I don't always just drink coffee every morning, I guess. Sometimes I do cut it out completely. But whenever I do take it, like you said, and like we were talking earlier, is that it does give you that little boost where I feel like I can just push myself a little bit harder. I feel less fatigued, and I can just get just 1 or 2 more reps on certain things. That's like, if I don't have it, I might be like, oh man, I just feel so tired, or oh man, I really don't want to push it one more time, or if I do, maybe it's going to collapse on me. I don't really know. But
Yeah. But I do like the idea of cycling it, like you said. If you work out 3 times a week, let's say you work out Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it's probably a good idea to limit caffeine as much as you can on those rest and recovery days, like Tuesday and Thursday. Maybe limit it over the weekend as well, just so you can experience the full effect when you want it on those workout days, and kind of just cleanse your body of it on the off days, as opposed to just drinking your 3 cups of coffee every single day, and then you go to your workout and you don't even really notice the effect, because now you're just dependent on it just to like be awake.
Right.
In addition to the physical benefits, there's cognitive performance boosts as well. It boosts executive functioning. improves working memory, anecdotally stimulates creativity. It's been shown to improve mood, even lower levels of depression. That's possibly due to this thing, chlorogenic acid. That's just one of the many antioxidants found in caffeine, but they think that that's what's responsible for the mood enhancement. So yeah, a lot of cognitive boosts. I know for me, if I'm going to be doing some work or something, or if I'm going to, like, say, give a seminar or a talk, or maybe you've got a meeting at work or something like that, or a project you really need to be focused on, a cup of coffee before that is, I find, to be certainly beneficial. I think most people do.
Now, do you drink like more caffeine during those situations, or is it still just a roughly same amount?
No, yeah, it's roughly the same amount. I don't usually go over, I would say about 200 milligrams, which would be like two cups of coffee would be about the max that I would want to do. On my days when I'm like not working out, or I don't need that boost or anything, that's usually when I'm drinking tea. And even on the days when I do work out, a lot of times I do just drink tea. But if I want that extra boost, that's when I go for like a cup or maybe 2 cups of coffee. But I don't ever go beyond that, really.
Yeah, because I mean, one, you probably don't have like a super high tolerance to it like some people
Right.
do.
Yeah.
But,
it affects me pretty strongly.
But it was interesting where they say that like around 200 milligrams and up really give you kind of that mental clarity and actually do give you like a positive performance in like situations like you were saying, like if you're giving a presentation, or if you're going to do, I don't know, just some big activity or test or something.
Or podcast.
Or a podcast. Maybe I should drink more before the podcast. But yeah, things like that, they actually say that you could benefit from drinking a larger amount. And they actually said that a dose of 500 to 600 milligrams, which that's a lot. That's like 5 to 6 cups of coffee.
Yeah.
But if you consume that much, it's the same as a low dose of amphetamines.
Oh, geez. Okay.
So
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I mean, I guess
it depends on the situation, I guess. I wouldn't say on a normal basis, but if you have that big presentation in front of, like, the big board of directors or something, maybe.
Yeah, well, to all listeners, I recommend 5 cups of coffee over methamphetamine any day. I don't know if 5 cups of coffee is necessarily good for you. You might want to be careful with that, but it's certainly better than speed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are safe versions of speed like Adderall and things like that, but also amphetamines
and doctor prescribed. Yep.
Yeah, but yeah, just don't go taking speed instead of some 5 or 6 cups of coffee.
Sure. That's interesting. Some other like health uses or strategies, ways that people could use coffee if they're trying to pursue health. One thing is it is an appetite suppressant. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that people rely on that for restricting calories or for dieting, because, like, let's say you have a bunch of coffee in the morning and maybe you feel all energetic and you get that boost from the coffee, and so you don't feel like eating because you have plenty of energy from your caffeine. You might go half the day without eating any food because it isn't, like I said, an appetite suppressant. But when it wears off later in the day, you are just going to make up for that if you went the whole morning without eating, you're just going to be hungrier in the evening. So it's all going to balance out in the end. But maybe used strategically, like, I don't know, if you were going to work today and you knew that there's going to be a big meeting and they're going to bring in a bunch of donuts and stuff and you didn't want to be tempted, who knows, maybe a few cups of coffee before that to kind of prevent you from wanting to binge on the donuts would be a good idea.
Yeah, if it does help you, that's great. I would say you should definitely consume coffee over donuts. I can say that I normally find the pairing pretty nice. So,
Sure.
So that's why I think that's why Dunkin' is so successful.
Another thing, for people who do low carb or ketogenic dieting, it does enhance a low carb or a keto diet. The whole point of like eating low carb or keto, and we haven't done a podcast on this yet, but I'm sure we probably will in the future. The whole point of low carb and keto is to to mobilize fats that you have stored on your body. You get them out of storage and then get them burnt for fuel. And coffee enhances this process. It may not be super significant, maybe like 5 or 10%, but it still enhances the process a little bit. It makes an enzyme called HSL, hormone sensitive lipase, work a little bit better and work a little bit faster. That's the enzyme that breaks down. It's chiefly responsible for breaking down stored body fat and mobilizing it into your bloodstream so you can burn it for energy. So you want that enzyme to be working at full speed, helping you break down fat, and coffee does speed that up and it enhances that process a little bit. So for people on a low carb or ketogenic diet, coffee might speed up your results a little bit. And also it enhances the health benefits of fasting. And we've done a podcast on fasting in the past. Yeah, did you?
That's what I was going to bring up. I thought you were going to skip over it, but no. During our fasting podcast, we mentioned that coffee can also stimulate autophagy.
Yeah.
So it actually has like that self-consuming effect where you can kind of heal your body by getting rid of unnecessary organisms, which is essentially what autophagy is. And it's just one way to boost it while fasting up to, I think it's after 48 hours. You can start seeing it after that 48-hour period. Autophagy kind of kicks in.
Yeah.
But coffee
I've seen like various time frames on this, but certainly fasting does result in more autophagy than when you're not fasting. And the longer you fast, the more autophagy there is. And coffee just enhances that process. I think studies show that it's the polyphenols in coffee, some of the polyphenols that are responsible for shutting down nutrient sensing pathway called mTOR. And when mTOR is activated, that shuts down autophagy. So the polyphenols in coffee prevent mTOR from shutting down autophagy. You get more autophagy.
Cool.
Yep. I don't know if we need to dive any further into it than that, but if you are fasting and the reason that you're fasting is for this health benefit of recycling those old damaged cell parts into shiny new healthy cell parts, that's what autophagy is. If you're fasting for that health benefit, which is honestly my favorite benefit of fasting, coffee can speed up that process. So I think that, and that's why when we did fasting in the past, we did like a 3-day fast. One of the things that we were allowed to take in on our fast was black coffee to just enhance the benefits of the fast.
Now, would you also, I know this is mainly a coffee episode, but what about like the benefits of tea? Because I feel like matcha tea, while it has less caffeine, it also has about equivalent in antioxidants.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And you can drink multiple of those a day. Like I think matcha tea and green tea only have somewhere between 40 to 50 milligrams of caffeine versus a cup of coffee, which is like the equivalent would have 100.
Right.
So it's like you could drink almost 2 cups of that, get double the antioxidants, and still have less caffeine.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I don't know if there's much of a difference. There probably is a difference. I'm sure if you looked at all of the antioxidants present in matcha tea, or all of them in green tea, or all of them in black tea, and then all of them in coffee, there's a different antioxidant profile. And I'm not sure which ones are responsible for which effects.
Right. I'm sure most scientists don't know every single one.
Right. There's just so many of them. And it's like kind of a territory that's only, been explored very, very little compared to how much there's still left to know. But certainly I think that either way you go, whether it's going to be tea with your fasting or coffee with your fasting, you're still going to enhance that autophagic process and kind of get more benefits from your fast. Yeah, good one there. Let's see. Do I have anything else about the benefits here? Man, we're rolling right through these. You know what? I don't know if there's any tips or anything that you wanted to give when it comes to coffee. I had one. This is something interesting. I remember back when I used to work at a supplement store, one of the amino acids that we sold, a supplement called L-theanine. L-theanine is usually marketed as a supplement for calming and anti-anxiety and maybe helping people sleep, that sort of thing. But I've heard a lot lately from various podcasts and just people who are into coffee more than I am, that if you combine L-theanine with caffeine, it can reduce the jitteriness of caffeine. So for people who do drink coffee and they do get a little bit like jittery or anxious and they don't like that, and they want something, they want the performance benefits of coffee, but they want something to kind of take the edge off and make sure that they don't get all like shaky and jittery and, you know, sweating and that sort of thing. Taking in some L-theanine with your coffee can actually help reduce those effects. That's kind of a cool tip.
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't heard about that one. So,
and I haven't tried it myself yet.
Yeah,
either.
I was like, maybe I'll have to try it. I have no idea.
Yeah, it's become kind of a popular thing, and a lot of the not pre-workout supplements, but a lot of like energy boosting supplements, or at least they're marketed for like, you know, just starting your day with like an energy boost or whatever, productivity, are combining caffeine with L-theanine for that reason. So it's kind of become a thing in the supplement world to use that alongside coffee.
I wonder if like energy drink companies are going to get in on that or do that, or they may even do it now.
Yeah, I actually got to look at the back of them. Maybe that'd probably be a smart thing, because L-theanine is cheap. You could add it to anything. And actually, L-theanine is present in teas. So if you're drinking green tea or black tea or whatever, then you're already getting the theanine along with the caffeine. So you're kind of already getting that combination. But coffee does not contain it. So, you know, if you wanted something to take the edge off of coffee, there you go, some theanine.
Is there like a certain concentration that you would recommend or anything?
You know what? Off the top of my head, I can't remember what doses it comes in. I want to say it's something like 50 milligrams or 100 milligrams.
Okay.
But you know what? It's something where I would just go to, you know, a vitamin store, and whatever it says on the label that you're supposed to take, like, you know, take one day of these, I would just stick to the directions.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that my tips we already kind of went over, which is like the whole cycling thing. Don't abuse the caffeine. And there was another one. Well,
you actually just touched on probably the biggest tip for me is how we use caffeine, because I think or how we use caffeine or coffee, whatever you want to terminology you want to use there. I do think that it can be part of a healthy lifestyle, and it's got all these health benefits that we've talked about. But I think it's also easy to abuse, and I think that a lot of people maybe do. They go a little bit overboard with it. So I would say, just don't let it become a crutch. The way to think about this for me is, you know, like I said, there's the people who feel like they have to have their morning cup of coffee or pot of coffee just in order to function. If that's you, then you're probably not in a very good place in terms of like, you're not getting enough sleep, and you're not getting. You should wake up in the morning feeling rejuvenated, well rested, and ready to go with your day. You should wake up in the morning pretty full of energy. You just slept for hopefully 8 hours or whatever you need, right? So what I want to see people do with coffee is, I want to see people get like, you know, their stress under control, get to bed at a normal time, get plenty of optimal sleep, wake up feeling refreshed and rejuvenated like they should. And then if you want to add coffee to your morning to get like a little boost of optimism and productivity and creativity and that, you know, mental clarity and stuff, then that's great. Now you're using it for like an added performance benefit, but don't use it as like a medication where like you wake up feeling like a zombie. And if I need this in order to like go about my day,
in order to function without getting headaches or suffering any of those other withdrawal symptoms.
Right. Yeah. If that's you, if you need it to start your day, or you're just not going to be able to function, then that's a sign that there's other things you need to address. Probably your sleep, maybe your nutrition, you know, your lifestyle in general. There's probably some things you need to do to make sure that you have the normal energy levels that we should have in the morning.
Yeah.
And then, hey, add coffee if you want to for fun after that. But
yeah, because I think like the people that you're talking to, the people that are abusing it or maybe using too much and it's affecting their sleep, you know, the other recommendation, which is I realized that when you mentioned sleep, is that you should consume your coffee in the morning, and definitely don't consume it after, let's say, noon.
Yeah.
So and if you can, you know, do that, yeah, you may see the withdrawal symptoms in the in the evening, but I bet you're going to start getting a higher quality of sleep. And then over time, you're going to get to those areas where you start getting your stress levels in check, your sleep levels in check. And then you can be like, oh yeah, if I just have my coffee in the morning, I'm fine.
Right. Yep. Exactly. 100%.
So
Let me think. Do I have another tip? Oh, you know what? This is really important to talk about. Just so when it comes to the way that a lot of people consume coffee is they're going and they're getting like these lattes or cappuccinos, or even if they're making coffee at home, they're adding a bunch of like, you know, International Delight creamer, or you know, these Nestle creamers and stuff to them, flavored creamers and whatnot. Once you've done that, you've basically turned your morning coffee into a glorified milkshake, a caffeinated milkshake. You know, these coffee creamers that most people use that are flavored, they're full of, first of all, they're made with vegetable oil, which is garbage, soybean oil usually. They are loaded with sugars usually. And when they're not, they're loaded with a bunch of artificial sweeteners, Splenda and stuff, which I'm also very much against for reasons that we can go into in a different podcast.
We should do one on that.
We should do one on artificial sweeteners and flavors and things like that. But they're basically, they're just full of a bunch of chemical garbage and vegetable oils that you don't want to be putting in your body. It becomes a very high calorie drink. You know, it's like a 300 calorie, like I said, a milkshake with caffeine in it. So I would tell people, if that's you, if you like your flavored, you know, coffee desserts for breakfast, try to wean yourself off to, you know, obviously drinking black coffee is great. That's how I consume it. Or you can add like a little bit of half and half, or a little bit of heavy cream or something like that. Or some people like to put butter in their coffee. That became a thing.
The bulletproof coffee.
Yeah.
They do butter and like coconut oil or
MCT oil. Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to do that, that's fine. It's not bad for you. You know, those are healthy fats at least, you know, but I guess what I'm saying is, if you're going to add anything to your coffee, make it healthy fats, either from heavy cream, half and half, or dairy, or butter. Or, you know, if you're going to add sweetener, maybe try to make it like a stevia or something like that, but try to wean yourself off that kind of stuff and get to the point where you're drinking coffee as close to black as you can, would be my tip there.
Yeah, that's definitely a good tip. Because I mean, that I think we've talked about in the other podcasts where all of us had to try to wean ourselves to get to that point. Maybe Josh didn't, but I remember, I think you and I both had like a story where we kind of weaned ourselves to that black coffee.
Yeah. I definitely, when I started drinking coffee, it was like 5 packets of sugar and, you know, a whole bunch of cream. It was mostly cream and sugar, and then it was coffee flavored. But now I drink black coffee without all that added crap, you know.
Yeah. Now every once in a while, like a pumpkin latte or you know, some sort of flavored drink, and I'll have one on occasion, but not like, and I'm talking like maybe 1 or 2 a year. Not
doing that, you're doing it with the understanding that you're having dessert. You know, you're making the conscious decision. It's like having ice cream. You're like, okay, this is maybe not so good for me, but I like to have this once in a while. You know, just don't make it like a daily habit.
Like most people do.
Yeah. That stop through a Starbucks drive-through to get your, you know, giant latte is not good for your health.
Yeah. 1, you'll save tons of time, and 2, you'll save tons of calories and money. Yeah, I meant 2 money, 3 calories. There we go.
Let's see. Was there anything else that we wanted to add to this thing? From a personal point of view, I thought maybe it'd be fun to tell people about my super breakfast.
Your super breakfast? Is that
this
okay?
Is like,
yeah.
I mean, you guys know, we've talked about this a little bit I think we did a podcast a while back, what we eat in a day. And I mentioned that I start almost every day with dark chocolate for breakfast. But my typical like super breakfast is I have coffee, dark chocolate, a whey protein powder, and then I take a couple of supplements, spirulina and fish oil. This is something that I started doing a long time ago, probably like over 15 years ago now, and I've been doing it ever since. It's basically just a breakfast that has a ton of healthy fats, especially stearic acid from the dark chocolate and some omega-3 fatty acids from the fish oil. Healthy amino acids from my 25 to 30 grams of whey protein. I always say prioritize protein. So we've got like a bunch of healthy fats, a bunch of healthy protein, a ton of powerful antioxidants from the coffee, including polyphenols, anthocyanins from my spirulina, and carotenoids from my spirulina, more polyphenols and antioxidants from my dark chocolate. And the benefits there, that breakfast is anti-inflammatory, thanks to the fish oil and the coffee, a huge boost to your HDL cholesterol from the coffee and from the dark chocolate, the stearic acid in dark chocolate. It lowers LDL cholesterol, thanks to the fish oil. That's typically called your bad cholesterol. We need to do a cholesterol podcast soon. And it's a ketogenic meal for anyone who wants to go low carb or ketogenic. That's all just healthy fats and protein. There's no carbs in there. Improved skin health, eye health, endothelial health, et cetera, from all the antioxidants. It wakes me up from the caffeine and from the theobromine, which is another stimulant in dark chocolate, and it's delicious.
And when you say dark chocolate, what's the percentage?
90%.
Right.
So I'm eating, half a bar of 90% dark chocolate, which is probably about 300 calories. My black coffee, a few extra calories from my fish oil, and then my spirulina. Spirulina, for those who don't know, is a microalgae. It's a blue-green algae that grows in the ocean, and it's just loaded with a bunch of antioxidants and some pretty cool compounds. So yeah, that's my super breakfast. I thought I'd throw that in there since it includes coffee.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I think people could
coffee
benefit from that.
Coffee and dark chocolate just go so well together.
It does, because I tried it. Or if you remember, during the Easy Fit Challenge, I added that type of 90% was it Lindt dark chocolate and I had it with my coffee. And I mean, if you're someone that has to have like some sort of like cream or sugar with your coffee, I mean, that's a pretty good substitute. Like if you're drinking your coffee and you have like just a square of that with it.
That's what I do. I take like a little bite of dark chocolate, and then you take a little sip of coffee and let it all melt together in your mouth. Oh, it's delicious.
So it's almost like a cheat code to drinking black coffee and having like healthy fats and healthy, all those things that you mentioned versus, having that heavy cream or having like any of those like flavored, creamers and all that crap that has a bunch of bad negative fats and high sugar. So.
Right on. Yeah. So I don't know if I have anything else to say about coffee. Oh, you know what we should wrap this up with, unless you have anything like additional that you wanted to add that we forgot about.
No, I think I'm good. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Some is just like our final verdict on the point of the episode is like for people out there wondering, is coffee good for me or is coffee bad for me? And should I include it in a healthy lifestyle or should I get rid of it or whatever? My stance is there are some potential negatives to coffee and caffeine, and there are some potential benefits to it. But I wouldn't say that the negatives are so detrimental that like I would advise everyone to eliminate coffee from their diet. And I wouldn't say that the benefits are so massive that I would encourage everyone to drink coffee regularly. So to me, it's more like I think overall coffee is probably has a net benefit as long as you're not abusing it. But it's such a mild net benefit probably that I would say just go with whether you like coffee or not. If you're someone who likes coffee, you're probably okay drinking it. Just don't abuse it. If you're someone who doesn't like coffee, I'm not going to be like, oh, you have to. If you want to be healthy, you just have to drink it. Like you can be perfectly fine without adding coffee to your diet. You might even be better off. It's hard to know.
Yeah. I mean,
so unfortunately, there's no definitive answer we can give on it. There's no definitive answer that anyone can give on it. That's just kind of where the state of research is right now.
And I mean, I think it also depends on, each person's situation. If you're someone with hypertension or if you have, certain ailments like heart arrhythmias and things where you may be susceptible to high levels of caffeine,
Yeah.
all right, maybe you probably shouldn't consume it. If
Right.
you're one of those people that are pounding 3 scoops of pre-workout before your workout,
Yeah.
maybe you should consider drinking 1 or 2 cups of coffee.
Yep.
You know, so as I would just say, if you can consume coffee and you like consuming coffee without abusing coffee,
If you can use it responsibly. Yep.
then I would say you should drink coffee and get the benefits from it, the mild benefits like you were saying. But if you're going to abuse it and it's going to affect all the other qualities of your life, then I would say, yeah, you should probably just do without it. I don't know, find like a good tea or find something else.
That is perfectly put, and I think that's a really good way to wrap up the episode.
All
Nice.
right.
Cool. Thank you, Ricky. That was a good
Yeah,
one.
I think so too.
All right.
So with that, we'll see you on the next episode.
Yeah, and if anybody has any topics they want us to cover in the future, please let us know. Either comment on the YouTube videos or just send us an email at co-movement.com. Get in touch with us however you want to, but we're always looking for new topics that our listeners want us to discuss for future episodes. Cool. All right. See you later.
All right. See ya.